Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Tonight's video will be entitled Eagle Mountain Ghost Town. That's right, I'm talking about a California ghost town that's associated with the Southern Pacific Railroad and Henry J. Kaiser of Kaiser Steel. Both of those companies were war contractors for world wars. Southern Pacific Railroad carried munitions and vehicles and other things, troop carrying. And Henry J. Kaiser built supply ships during World War II. Then expanded his business from mining and manufacturing of steel and aluminum, Kaiser Aluminum, Kaiser Steel, and expanded into a healthcare system known as Kaiser Hospitals. That's right, Kaiser Doctors, Kaiser Network. That's a military system also. Every single thing that Henry Kaiser was involved with was militarized under Swiss bank authority. All right, it's another serendipitous video because I never thought I'd be doing this video. But it turns out I have some experience. I've ridden my bicycle past this particular ghost town 2 times in my life. Did it in 2019 and then I did it again in 2020. And it's hard to believe. I did this before the COVID pandemic had blew up. Anyway, so I don't believe I would have been able to do it in 2021. All right, this is a bicycle ride that's an event, meaning it's a race. And we start in the town at 29 Palms. If you know where that is, check out a map. And 29 Palms takes every bit of 9 hours for Juxtaposition to drive from his house. It's almost 600 miles distance. It's technically approximately 550 miles to get to the Dolores Hotel, atop a hill, the only hill in 29 Palms. The top of the tallest hill in 29 Palms stands Dolores Hotel, and it takes me, Juxtaposition, 9 hours and a couple of minutes to get there. Now, I do chop the drive up. I've done it straight through, and I prefer to do half the distance, stay at a hotel, sleep for a while, and then continue on karate chopping the 9 hours. But I have done it in 9 hours straight. But you have to stop for gas, you have to stop for fuel, and you have to use the restrooms. Anyway, what I want to tell you is that this ghost town is not near 29 Palms. It's actually in the Coffin Corner, the southwest corner of Joshua Tree National Park. And for those of you that's never seen a Joshua tree, they're quite remarkable. They're very prodigious in this area. The park is not a small park. It is every bit of 200 miles in circumference. 200 miles in circumference. And yours truly has ridden his bicycle around the entire park without actually entering the park. Because it was 2019, I was denied a permit, as were all the cyclists. No cyclists were allowed in Joshua Tree National Park in 2019. So we had to just race around the perimeter, and it took me right about 6 hours, right on the dot, to finish. I think I finished sixth or seventh place out of about 80 people. I think we had about 80 people that year. So, no, I didn't win the race. But, I finished with my dignity. Let's put it this way. Normally, after you ride 200 miles on a bicycle and you climb approximately 12,000 feet of elevation, and you begin at about 3,600 feet, and you then go down about 5,000 feet, and then you worm your way back up to where you started multiple times, because you go back up and you go down and you go up and you go down. Anyway, it works out to about 12,000 feet of climbing. Usually you're a wreck. That's even if you're super duper in shape, you're a wreck. All right, so what I want to tell you about this place is it has a very ghostly history, and of course, how fitting for it to be a ghost town today, right? Let me just read you kind of a boilerplate. Eagle Mountain is this peak that that stands high above an already high place called the Desert Center. The Desert Center, we're going to get to the Desert Center in a second. Yours truly is grab some water bottles at the Desert Center. Before that, the other historical places out there is the George S. Patton Memorial Museum, where I had lunch the two times I did this bike race. I at approximately 100 and it's about 125 miles of the 200 miles is when we climb this pass that's called the Chicarico Summit. It's about a 20-mile uphill where we ascend approximately 3,600 to 4,000 feet over a 20-mile gradient. It actually plateaus and goes backwards downhill a little bit, and then it comes back up again. So it actually, you're climbing more than 4,000 feet, but it doesn't feel too bad because it's stretched over 20 miles, if you can imagine that. Normally I'm used to climbing Mount Diablo. That's 3,600 feet in 10 miles. See, so it's half as steep as Mount Diablo, which is averages about 6%. So the gradient to go to the George S. Patton Museum on Highway 10. Highway 10 is the Santa Monica Freeway, if you weren't sure, but it's a long way from Santa Monica. And so it's probably about a 3 to 4% average gradient, although, again, because of its undulation, it's more like 5% gradient when you put in the downhills that are mostly peppering the uphill. All right. Eagle Mountain is a ghost town in California. It's on the southeastern Coffin Corner of Joshua Tree National Park. That would be at the intersection of Interstate Highway 10, aka the Santa Monica Freeway, and a highway that runs north-south or south-north, which I turned. It's called California State Route 177. Okay, 177, and that's where I turned left, which is at the Desert Center. And tucked on a side road from the Desert Center 5 miles to the north, but set back from California Route 177, is the Henry J. Kaiser mining facility, formerly owned by Southern Pacific Railroad. Henry J. Kaiser, industrialist, founded the mine in 1948. But the town, or it's not really a town, it's a place, and it did exist in terms of, after World War One, that was used for George Patton to use the area around there before Highway 10 has been built. George Patton practiced tank maneuvers in this part of the California. Should also know that Dwight Eisenhower brought a platoon of men from Georgia, I believe it was Camp Benning, where they imprisoned William Cowley. From that fort, before William Cowley was born, Dwight Eisenhower took some men and went all the way out to the Santa Monica Pier, and he came through this area of Eagle Mountain. So Dwight Eisenhower is familiar with this area. Dwight Eisenhower is familiar with Area 51 also, although he was denied access. When he was president, he was denied access of Area 51. But before that, he was familiar with Eagle Mountain area, and George Patton was for doing his maneuvers with some very primitive tanks. Anyway, you should know that Henry Kaiser was interested in the area to mine ore, mineral ore, iron ore, so that he could build Liberty ships for World War II and during and before World War II. So the town grew out of the employees that Henry Kaiser positioned there. They've created monstrous tailings from, it gives you an indication of how much tunneling went on there. It was extreme for decades. The town has a fully integrated medical system where Henry Kaiser was able to, learn about healthcare treatments whilst he was employing miners to dig into the mountains, which are essentially part of Joshua Tree National Park. Illustrates my point, people, that FEMA camps are located on military bases and they can be put up overnight. Within 24 hours, you can have a FEMA city. And it turns out that mining often is associated with national park services, and so is the military. Because I told you that Dwight Eisenhower came through this area and probably stayed overnight here, and so did General George Patton, who had men learning to maneuver the tanks in and around the Joshua trees. All right, so Medicare was all part of this program because of the fact that you had so many employees there. Then they built a town up and around the spouses and children, and they put in churches and auditorium and baseball fields, etc. Founded in 1948, Kaiser Steel Corporation, Eagle Mountain is located at the entrance of a now defunct Eagle Mountain iron mine. As the mine expanded to a peak population of 4,000 people, it had a wide landscaping streets, over 400 residential homes. Some of the homes had as many as 4 bedrooms. They also had 200 trailer spaces and several boarding houses and dormitories to provide living space for temporary workforce for Kaiser Mining, Kaiser Steel. Other amenities included an auditorium, a park, shopping center complex, a community swimming pool, lighted tennis courts, a baseball diamond. Businesses that operated out there were a bowling alley, 2 gasoline stations, which would have serviced cars along Highway 10, aka the Desert Center. Businesses included 8 churches, 3 schools, and workers across numerous crafts who were represented there by the mine. They had organized labor unions for collective bargaining purposes. They actually had 5 different unions, which included the International Union of North America and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. They were 2 of the 5 unions that represented the workers at the mine. During the late 1930s, Henry Kaiser built the West Coast's first fully integrated steel mill. In 1942, Henry Kaiser built mills at Fontana, California, which is 112 miles to the west of Eagle Mountain Mines. Today, Fontana Mill site includes successor mills known as the Auto Club Speedway, formerly known as the California Speedway. Kaiser then purchased the idle mines from the Southern Pacific Railroad as a source of high-grade iron ore. This was a contingent strategy for Henry Kaiser, who used the railroad to move his raw materials for an industrial operation previously known as a pig farm, an agricultural pig farm area. All right, so the mine operated again from 1942 up into the 1970s. Stiff foreign competition and pricing discounts led to a reduction in the iron ore output at the Eagle Mountain facility. So the population of the mine and town declined to an all-time low in 1980. And then in the summer of 1980, the mine shut down, briefly reopening again, but there were only 750 workers left. And eventually, on November 3rd, 1981, Kaiser announced that he was going to transfer the miners over to the Fontana Works, which is 112 miles away to the west, and that the entire Eagle Mountain mine operation would then be closed. The grocery store in what became the ghost town of the Eagle Mountain, it closed October 1982, and so did the post office. And I think once your post office and grocery store closes, I think you can consider your town to be dead. stay tuned because this could happen in your town. Your town could become a ghost town as we move to the Donald Trump freedom cities, right? That we were going to see a lot of Eagle Mountain ghost towns popping up all over the United States. So I'm doing this video, I hope you know, as a metaphor for what is probably going to come here with our universal basic income, mass unemployment, and movement to what's called a tokenized economy, which means crypto, a crypto society, a digital world of social obedience and social scores, social credit. Anyway, then the mine lay quiet from 1983, and it experienced a resurgent in 1986, 2.5 years after it closed, because the California Department of Corrections, aka the prison system, saw an opportunity to convert this built-up town with the 400 houses would be great for prison guards and transfer some prisoners there. So they put in approximately 450 prisons when they built a fence around part of the town, and then moved the guards into the residential part of the town, and they turned the place into a prison from 1988. All right, and then the prison continued until 2003 when they had a riot. Can you believe that? They had a riot. Let me tell you something, people. I've been to a lot of places in California. This is by far the most remote place I have ever been in California, and I've been in a few very remote places, including where I encountered a black grizzly bear. But the town was probably only about 6 miles away from where I encountered the bear. This town is 150 miles away from 29 Palms, which is one of the smallest towns I've ever seen. And they have a Marine base in 29 Palms called the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, and they have 10,000 Marines there. And I'm telling you, they even have enough Marines to have a casino, the Turtle Rock Casino. And I still consider 29 Palms to be very small, micro small. But Eagle Mountain is a nano small. And of course, I'm telling you, it's a ghost town now, except something's going on there. Something is going on there today, and they don't want to talk about it. I told you it was Southern Pacific Railroad, and then it was Henry J. Kaiser for decades, and then it was nothing, and then the state of California wanted to use it for a prison, which they did for approximately 16 years until they had a riot, and 2 prisoners were killed, and about 9 were injured, and these are prisoners that are low risk prisoners, but you got to remember the temperature in the summertime at Eagle Mountain is 115 up to 120 degrees during the summertime. Okay, so this is a furnace. And in the wintertime, in January, it can get down to 20 degrees below freezing. So talk about living on the moon. I mean, you're living in an alien society out there. It's not appropriate to put prisoners out there. It's not appropriate to put anyone out there. The bicycle race I did is, I believe, the 3rd week of February, and it's cool temperature. But, you know, the average elevation out there is about 3,500 feet of elevation. We start at 3,600, we go down almost to sea level, and then we climb back up above 29 Palms, and then we descend back down, and then you do this really long climb back to the town of 29 Palms at the end, which is the most psychologically difficult climb I've ever done in my entire life. And I've done many difficult climbs, but because you already have 170 miles in your legs, and then you have to climb 30 miles up to this town. Normally, if you were fresh, you know, that probably wouldn't be that difficult, but there's a headwind, and every time you get close to a summit, you get buffeted by the wind, and you're exhausted. You've been on the bicycle for over 9 hours, and you still have another 3 hours to go because your average speed is real slow because of the climb, because you're tired, because your blood sugar is low, because there's a headwind. And you put all that together, and it's a definite mind control operations. And I've done it twice. So you can't say I can't do it. I can do it. Do I want to do it? Hell no, I don't want to do it. And especially since I've done it. Just check the box. Never again shall we meet. All right. So anyway, I'll provide you a link. But after the jail closed, the prison closed, it went dormant for a while until the mystery loomed larger. This is when an ecology company came in, and several different proposals were made what to do with the ghost town. One was to fill the mines with water and create hydropower using the pressure of the mines. That fizzled out. And then next, the entire town of 10,000 acres of Eagle Mountain was purchased by a mysterious company in Cerritos, California, which is code for Long Beach and military forces. Cerritos is a military town. It's really a part of Long Beach. That's where Tiger Woods came from, in case you didn't remember. This is where Lino LaBianca was trained as an Army soldier in and around Cerritos, and also Terminal Island Prison, and the area in and around Long Beach, California, is where Cerritos is. And this company is called Ecology Mountain Holdings, and they purchased this property recently, within the last 3 years, and they haven't done anything officially with it yet. However, everybody is suspicious as to what their plans were. They also had a plan to use the mine shafts to dump Los Angeles garbage and use it as a landfill. But there's been numerous lawsuits on that, and that has fizzled out too. Because Los Angeles does have a problem dumping their garbage because Puente Hills has now reached its life expectancy, and they need replacement garbage dumps. And they were looking at using the mine shafts out here at Joshua Tree National Park to dump the LA garbage, which is a heck of a drive on a truck. I mean, it's probably take at least 5 hours to drive trucks out there to dump the garbage. Anyway, long story boring is that nobody really trusts the Ecology Mountain Holdings LLC, and nobody really knows who the real owners are, despite the fact that they're supposed to file that. And I don't know who owns Ecology Mountain Holdings, but it's a ghost town. They own the ghost town in Joshua Tree, Riverside County, in the southeast corner, Coffin Corner, at at the intersection of highways 10 and 177, right? All right. There's been talk about lithium mining. Could be used for that. Could be used for another prison. Could be used for building a casino. I would say no to the casino. There's nobody lives within 100 miles of the desert center. There's no large populations. Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Indian Springs, that's about 80 miles to the west, southwest from this location. I don't see people driving there. I think they'd prefer just to go to Las Vegas. Why go here? It's not built up like Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas is falling apart as I speak. All right, so anyway, I wanted you to be well aware of this place. The Desert Center is, I thought, the more famous part of it, but I was wrong. The Desert Center is a census-designated space in Riverside County, California. It's technically called the Colorado Desert. I didn't know that. Again, it sits at the corner of Interstate 10 and State Route 177, which is 5 miles from this Eagle Mountain ghost town, which is behind the Desert Center. I am familiar with the Desert Center, which also is a ghost town. I am much more familiar with that. I didn't really notice the other place because of the mine tailings and the tall mountain range of Joshua Tree National Park. So I just saw the park. I didn't know there was a ghost town there because there was no traffic. There were no cars. I mean, it's dead as a doornail. It's the one place in California I was not worried about a car, ever. Place is a total ghost town. I don't remember more than 2 cars passing me in 60 miles. I mean, that is just so unreal, surreal. All right, so anyway, you should know that the Desert Center was really home to Dwight Eisenhower, and I'm sure George Patton too. It's maybe 8 miles to the east of the George S. Patton Memorial Museum. I always consider them the same place. They're not. I had lunch at the George Patton Memorial Museum, and then I got on my bike and I rode about maybe it's 12 miles, and it's hard for me to remember. I was with a really strong rider one year, and he flatted, so I helped fix the flat so that we would stay together. And then we went to the desert center, refilled our water bottles, and then we continued. And then I got a flat, and he told me he couldn't wait for me. But I waited for you. I waited for you, but he wouldn't wait for me. Oh my God. That just shows you that there's like no, you have allies until you don't have allies anymore. I learned that at the Desert Center with a guy who, he's done Race Across America. So, I was smart to wait for him because he's really strong. If you can ride 3,000 miles on your bicycle, in a week, I think you know what I'm talking about. I can't do that. That's crazy, wackadoodle cycling. All right, anyway, so the places in and around the perimeter of Joshua Tree National Park start really, in my mind, with 29 Palms, where you have the United States Marine Corps and at least 10,000 Marines in a air-ground combat center. Then you have the Turtle Rock Casino, and then you have Yucca Valley, which is another township about 10 miles to the west of 29 Palms. The Dolores Hotel is where I stayed in 29 Palms. It's a pretty nice hotel given how small the town is. Then really there's nothing to talk about for about 110 miles. And then you come to the George S. Patton Tank Center, which is a top 4,000 mile climb called the Chiriaco Summit. That's where the George Patton Memorial Museum is. Then about 10 miles to the east, you're going to hit the Desert Center, which used to be a restaurant, and I think it had a general store at one time. Anyway, it's vacant. It's completely vacant. And then it's 5 miles to the north of the Desert Center and slightly to the west is the Eagle Mountain Ghost Town, which has 400 empty houses, a baseball diamond, a vacant prison, and the Ecology Center is owning it with unknown plans. I understand they have a street light that is on during the daytime, so somebody's paying the electric bill out there. Someone is paying the electric bill out there, but there's no real employee driving. The road is closed. They do have barricades on a paved road to get in there. Now you can sneak in. There's a dry creek bed you can get in. But like I said, it's 5 miles. So you'd be 5 miles on rocks. And by the way, you're talking about rocks. Lots and lots of rocks in and around Joshua Tree National Park. There's dirt too, but my recollection is mostly rocks, okay? And these cactus trees known as Joshua trees. Take care. That's my video for today. Do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Bye-bye now.